The 1970s and 1980s were a turbulent time for America. The echoes of the civil rights movement were fading, leaving a void yet to be filled. Black communities, brimming with hope just a decade prior, found themselves grappling with economic hardship. Unemployment soared, particularly among young black men. Into this vacuum of despair crept a new menace: crack cocaine. This cheap, potent drug spread like wildfire through vulnerable communities, leaving devastation in its wake. By the mid-1980s, the crack epidemic had taken hold, tightening its grip on America's urban landscapes. The rise of crack cannot be disentangled from the economic realities of the time. As jobs disappeared and poverty deepened, the drug trade offered a perilous lifeline. It promised quick money and a sense of agency in a world that seemed to offer neither. Many felt trapped, with few options for escape. The crack epidemic, though devastating in its consequences, did not emerge in a vacuum. It was the product of a society grappling with deep-seated inequalities and a failure to address the needs of its most vulnerable citizens. Instead of addressing the root causes of the crisis, poverty, lack of opportunity, and systemic racism, the government opted for a different approach: the war on drugs. Initiated under President Nixon and intensified under President Reagan, this campaign sought to eradicate drug use through punitive measures. This meant harsher drug laws, increased funding for law enforcement, and a Just Say No campaign that vilified drug users rather than offering help. The consequences, however, were far from just. The Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986, a cornerstone of the war on drugs, introduced mandatory minimum sentences for drug offenses. This meant that possession of even small amounts of crack cocaine could result in lengthy prison terms. What's more, the sentencing disparity between crack and powder cocaine, the latter a drug more commonly used by white Americans, was staggering. Possession of a small amount of crack could lead to the same sentence as possession of a significantly larger amount of powder cocaine. This disparity, alongside racial bias in policing and prosecution, fueled the mass incarceration of black Americans. The media played a significant role in shaping public perception of the crack epidemic. Images of black communities ravaged by violence and addiction flooded television screens and newspapers. The crack epidemic became synonymous with blackness, reinforcing harmful stereotypes and fueling racial prejudice. One of the most damaging narratives to emerge from this era was the myth of the crack baby. This term, used to describe children born to mothers who used crack cocaine during pregnancy, conjured up images of a generation of irreparably damaged youth. The reality, however, was far more nuanced. While crack cocaine use during pregnancy could pose risks, longitudinal studies debunked the myth of the crack baby, showing no significant long-term differences between these children and their peers. This harmful narrative, however, had already taken root in the public consciousness, further stigmatizing black communities and justifying punitive policies. The media's portrayal of the crack epidemic, often devoid of context and compassion, contributed to a climate of fear and misunderstanding, hindering efforts to address the crisis effectively. Despite the immense challenges they faced, black communities exhibited remarkable resilience in the face of the crack epidemic. Grassroots organizations, churches, and individuals stepped up to fill the void left by inadequate government response. They provided essential services such as drug treatment, job training, and support for families impacted by the crisis. These community-led initiatives offered a beacon of hope in the midst of despair. These efforts, though often underfunded and overlooked, played a crucial role in mitigating the epidemic's impact. They demonstrated the power of community and the importance of addressing not just the symptoms of the crisis, but also its underlying causes. The story of the crack epidemic is not just a story of devastation and loss. It is also a story of resilience, compassion, and the enduring strength of community in the face of adversity.